Hi Aces, welcome back to our Vegas Aces YouTube channel. My name is Angela Marie and I'll be your host for today. In this full How to Deal Roulette video, we'll learn how to spin the ball, how to calculate math, the process for buying in, casing the layout, pushing chips, mucking, as well as game security, table protection, and protecting your game from scams. But before we get started, I just want to remind you to like, subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification bell so that way you'll always be notified of our latest videos and live streams. Now, on with the show. The first step to learning how to deal roulette is to learn how to play the game. Click here to watch our video on how to play roulette, as that information will not be covered in the following videos teaching you how to deal the game. Please keep in mind that every casino is different, so make sure you know your house rules. When buying in, never take money directly from the player's hand. Always have the player place the cash on the table and then pick up the money from there. If they start waving bills around, just smile and say, "Sweetie, this is an amateur hour." The player must always place the money on the table before the dealer can pick it up. And on the same note, the dealer should never directly hand the player money or chips, specifically from the dealer's hand to the player's hand. The dealer will always place the chips on the table for the player to pick up. After the player picks up the cash off the table, they will place it on the apron, which is the area of the table with no markings on it, located next to the bank. Do not count down the money on the roulette numbers or on the inside of the roulette table. If the player tosses cash on the layout with no intention of betting, call out "no bet" and bring the money in to make change for the player. If the player wishes to bet with cash only, they may do so on the outside bets only. Spread the cash so that the stack of money is not folded and that the eye in the sky can see it clearly. Call out "money plays" loud enough that the floor supervisor can hear you. If the player tries to bet cash on any of the inside numbers, simply tell them "no bet." Then silently judge their life choices. Money plays is not allowed on the inside bets. Change the cash for chips so that the player can wager on the inside bets. Slide out the stacks of chips equal to the amount of money received and call out "change" loud enough for the floor supervisor to hear. Never turn away from your game when calling out "change", as the dealer must keep their game in view at all times. Each player will get a specific colored chip that only that player will use. This helps the dealer know which chips belong to which player when completing the take and pay procedure. One player can use only one color at a time, and no more than one person can play that same color. If the player asks for multiple colors, politely inform them that they may only play with one color. During the original buy-in, a player must purchase one full stack of 20 chips. But afterwards, the player is allowed to purchase short stacks as long as their play is continual. The casino prefers it if the player uses roulette chips instead of dollar value checks. However, if the player wants to play dollar value checks on the table, they are allowed to do so. This includes red $5 checks, green $25 checks, black $100 checks, and so on. If more than one player is betting the same color check, one of these players must exchange their checks for the colored roulette chips. The dealer will mark up a colored roulette chip with the dollar value of the check that that player wants to play. This will avoid any confusion during the take and pay procedure. Now, most roulette chips have a value of $1. However, some casinos may offer 25-cent or 50-cent chips. Roulette chips will typically have the roulette table number on them. So if the dealer is dealing on RO05, there will be an 05 marked in the center of that table's roulette chips. This tells the dealer and the management what table those roulette chips belong to in case a player walks off with them, and this way they can be returned to their respective table in the future. Now, we will discuss marking check value in detail in a later video. When giving players their chips, the dealer will push their stacks of chips to the player using specific chip and hand placements. We'll discuss pushing chips in more detail in a future video as well. However, you can find a guide on our website, vegas-aces.com. The following pictures are from that guide, and it focuses on the placement of the stacks and where the dealer should place their fingers. This skill requires time and practice to learn. If you'd like some hands-on practice, during your break you can go to a dead roulette game and simply ask the floor supervisor if you can practice pushing checks. More than likely, the floor supervisor will agree to this, unless they're busy with a difficult player or a high roller. In fact, most casinos expect their dealers to practice this skill and to develop their muscle memory. As the players finish making their bets, the dealer will case the layout before each spin, making sure that all bets are positioned correctly and can be seen clearly. Straighten up bets and clarify the value of the chips being played. Be aware of every bet and who is placing those bets on your game. The dealer will verify that there are no bets over or under the table limits, and that there are no bets that can be misinterpreted, and that there is no high-value checks placed anywhere in the betting area. Now, if the table minimum is $5, that means the player must play $5 on each of the outside bets as well as 5 $1 chips on the inside of the layout. The player cannot just play $3 on red and $2 inside and call it good. That's not an acceptable bet. They must play $5 on red and 5 $1 chips on the inside where the numbers are. Now, if a player bets $100 black chips inside, notify the floor supervisor by calling out "Checks play." Always keep your bank in view and never turn your back on your bank. Cheaters will try to distract the dealer with things like a spilled drink, causing the dealer to have tunnel vision where their bank or parts of their table are no longer in view. The columns and the third dozen are the most vulnerable sections and should be watched much more closely because of it. Always keep your eyes on the layout. The outside bets are closest to the player and more easily obtainable if a player decides to cheat. The dealer should also take note of which bets are placed where and how much there is. For example, the dealer will find it odd that a $30 bet just turned into a $105 bet on the first column, and that will alert the dealer that the player may be cheating. This technique will help the dealer in the future if someone tries to pinch or past post their bet. Pinching is when a player cheats by removing chips post-spin. It's also how they'll feel when surveillance catches them, like a sudden, embarrassing, and very public pinch to their ego. Technically speaking, pinching is when the player takes money off their bet, while past posting is when the player adds more money to their wager. Pinching and past posting typically happen after the outcome has been determined, and the cheater can either cut their losses or increase their wins. Now, the term past posting originates from horse racing, where a sound indicates a call to post, meaning no more bets can be taken. Any bets made after or past this time are considered past post. We'll dive deeper into this in a future video because cheating comes in so many flavors that they deserve their own episodes. There will be times when a player will ask you to place a bet on a number that they cannot reach. If they do so, the dealer will simply place the chips given to them on that number. This usually happens when the player is on one end of the table and they just can't reach the number on the other end of the table. Now, in doing so, the dealer will always clear their hands first and repeat what the player says. This is known as booking your bet. Announce all actions you're completing in a loud and clear voice for all to hear. There will be times when a player throws a few chips your way without giving you any instruction, just expecting that you moonlight as a psychic with telepathic powers. If you're feeling snarky, you can thank them for the tip and watch them freak out as you take your money. I can all but guarantee that they won't do it again. By the way, those chips you see in this video, they're real defunct Fitzgerald's roulette chips and you can own one. Just $5 on our website. Grab a piece of Vegas history while they last. After the dealer has cased their layout, it's time to spin the ball. The wheel should be spinning at a reasonable speed. Not so fast that it's difficult to read the numbers as they pass by, but not too slow either. When spinning the ball, the dealer will snap their fingers while keeping their wrist straight. Try not to fling the ball or spin the ball incorrectly, as this can cause carpal tunnel or a cyst to grow either in your fingers or in the wrist. These cysts are painful and will need surgery to be taken out. That's why it's so important to spin the ball correctly. Also, make sure that the ball is snapped in the right direction. The ball should spin in the opposite direction that the wheel is spinning. Never snap the ball in the same direction that the wheel is spinning. The dealer should never look at the wheel when they spin the ball. This is to prevent the dealer from trying to hit a certain number or a certain part of the wheel, as that's considered cheating. It's the dealer's job to deal a fair and honest game. So instead, look at the layout when snapping the ball and never avert your eyes from the layout for the entire time that that ball is spinning. Once the ball is spinning, do not obstruct or stop the rotation of the ball. The only exception of this is that if you know the ball will not make its full 3 rotations around the wheel. The ball must go around the wheel a minimum of 3 times for it to qualify as a valid spin. If the ball cannot make its 3 rotations, call out "no spin," take the ball out of the wheel, wait a second, and then spin the ball again. The ball must make 3 full rotations around the wheel to be a valid spin. Usually the dealer can tell right away if the ball will get 3 valid spins as soon as they snap the ball. However, the dealer will know for sure that the ball has gone around the wheel 3 times by either listening to it or by taking a few steps back to watch both the wheel and the layout at the same time. While the ball is spinning in the wheel, the dealer will watch the layout, adjust any misplaced bets, uncertain bets, or bets over or under the table limit. The dealer will listen to the ball spinning, and when it starts to slow down, the dealer will wave off the table. Practice and experience will enable the dealer to know when the ball is about to drop. A second or two before the ball drops, the dealer will sweep their hand over the table and announce, "No more bets." No transaction should be made during this time. Any bets made during this time will be returned to the player. By announcing "no more bets," this will make it easier for the dealer to see if a player tries to past post. If the player requests change while the ball is spinning, let them know you will do so after the spin. Then wait until after the take and pay procedure before making change for the player. If the relief dealer taps you out for a break when the ball is spinning, you must complete this spin, including the take and pay procedure, before clapping out to go to break. You are not allowed to go to break while the ball is spinning before you have taken or paid any bets. As the ball drops, the dealer will take a few steps back and angle themselves so they are square with the game. The dealer needs to continue watching the layout as this is a vulnerable time for the game. Be particularly alert of the columns, dozens, or any of the outside bets. If there's any doubt, call over the floor supervisor. The dealer's body should always be aligned squarely with the game. By taking a few steps back, the dealer can see both the layout and the wheel at the same time. This alignment allows you to see the entire table layout at all times. Now, if the dealer turns their body, they won't be able to see parts of the table. And the dealer should never have any part of the table blocked from view. The dealer should never turn their back on the game, even when calling for the floor, calling change, or during a dead game. After the ball has dropped, the dealer will glance at the wheel. However, do not turn your head and stare at the wheel, as this will cause tunnel vision. The dealer never wants to take their eyes off the layout. In order for the dealer to look and see what number was hit while avoiding turning their head, the dealer should take several steps back so that way they can see both the wheel and the table at the exact same time. Always keep the full table in sight, especially when quickly glancing at the wheel. Now, as soon as the dealer sees which number was hit, they will glance back at the layout. This will also make it easier to spot past posters. Timing is of the utmost importance when dealing roulette. The dealer should time the spin of the ball to the table play. The pace of the game is a vitally important factor when dealing, as speed is critical to the casino's bottom line. Keep the game at an even tempo, giving players enough time to make their bets, but not too long to slow down the pace of the game. On roulette, the normal pace of the game is 60 spins per hour. When snapping the ball, sometimes the ball will fly out of the wheel. There's no need to be embarrassed, as this is normal and it happens to the best of us. The more the dealer practices, the less it will happen though. Muscle memory is key. The best way to practice is, when you're on your break, go to the floorman who's supervising a dead roulette game and ask them if you can practice snapping the ball during your break. More than likely they'll say yes. A dead game is the perfect time to practice pushing chips or spinning the roulette ball. If you're on a dead game and you don't intend to practice snapping the ball, then take the ball out of the wheel and place it on top of the wheel head. There's a small indentation at the very top of the wheel that the ball can be placed in. Now, some casinos will request that the ball be taken out of the wheel and placed in a certain spot on the layout, typically near the bank or in between the stacks of roulette chips. If you're dealing on a normal game with players at the table and the ball flies out of the wheel, then the floor supervisor must inspect the ball before it can go back into play. That spin is void and the dealer will simply spin the ball again. One time when I was dealing roulette, the ball flew out of the wheel and hit a guy right below the belt. The spin was void, but his pain was very, very real. That poor guy didn't just lose his bet, he also lost about a decade of fun and good times in Las Vegas. Under no circumstances is the ball to be used if it has been touched or handled by a player or another person. Any ball that has flown out of the wheel and touched by a player must be given to the floor supervisor to be checked before being returned to the game. This is to prevent the ball from being switched with another ball that might have been altered in some way. Once the ball has dropped and a number is selected, it's time to complete the take and pay procedure. The dealer will take the dolly or the marker and mark the number that won. Make sure you are marking the correct number, as it may be difficult to see that number if chips completely cover the layout. Never grip the dolly in a way that hides the palm of your hand. Instead, place the top of the dolly in between your fingers so that the palm of your hand is open and facing upwards towards the eye in the sky. This is to prove that you're not palming or hiding any stolen chips to cap the bet, or to place them on the winning number before putting the dolly on top of it. When placing the dolly, if there are any chips on that winning number, place the dolly on top of those chips. The dolly must remain on that number until all winning bets have been paid. Players are not allowed to touch or move any of their winnings, even the ones located on the dozens, columns, or outside bets, until the dealer has finished paying all winning wagers. Once the dolly has been placed, the dealer will carefully identify the winning wagers and gingerly move all of the losing bets out of the way. Try not to have tunnel vision when you're doing this. Instead, keep the full table in sight at all times. Starting from the columns and moving up towards the wheel, the dealer will sweep the losing chips inward, beginning with the outside bets and going in. Sweep the losing chips into a pile and towards the mucking area where they will be mucked. Now, the term muck, or mucking the chips, refers to the pile of chips that will be picked up and placed in a stack of 20. If the player is chunking and the dealer needs those chips to pay the player, then it's considered acceptable for the dealer to pick up the lost wagers by stacking them instead of sweeping them. Never pay wagers when you are sweeping the chips off the layout. Always sweep the chips into a pile for mucking first and then pay the winning bets. It's important to keep an eye on the columns and third dozen during the sweeping process, as this is a vulnerable area and very susceptible to pass posting maneuvers. As the dealer pays the winning wagers, they will go from the outside in and from the bottom to top. This refers to the order in which bets must be paid. Outside bets will be paid first, starting from the bottom of the layout where the columns are, to the top of the wheel where the zeros are located. Again, this is because the bottom of the layout, where the columns and third dozen are located, are considered to be a vulnerable area and susceptible to pass posting maneuvers, which cannot be stressed enough. Think of the columns and third dozen as prime real estate for pass posters. It's basically the Vegas Strip for sneaky fingers. The columns and the dozens pay 2 to 1, while the red, black, odd, even, 1 to 18, and 19 through 36 bets pay even money. After the outside bets have been paid, the dealer can focus on paying the inside wagers. Inside bets are associated with the numbers, and the payout amount corresponds with the location of the chip inside the table. Always start with the outside going in. The double street will be paid first at 5 to 1, then the basket at 6 to 1, the street at 11 to 1, the corners at 8 to 1, the splits at 17 to 1, and finally the straight up bets at 35 to 1. Again, start near the columns and go up towards the wheel. The dealer will count up all of the chips and pay all of the same color all at once. If there's more than one color of chip in the same winning stack, then start with the color at the bottom and work your way to the top. When counting the chips on the winning number, if the stack is higher than 5 chips, the dealer will stagger the same colored stack into stacks of 5 to make it easier to count. If there are 20 chips or more, the dealer will have one stack of 20 and then stagger the chips in stacks of 5 after that. The dealer will always clear their hands before staggering a stack of chips. You don't want the eye in the sky to think that you are pass posting. Now, if you notice that the player has played less than the table minimum after a number has hit, then pay the player what you owe them and notify the player that they must play the full table minimum from now on. If the player bets more than the table maximum and the number is already hit, notify the floor supervisor and they will tell you to pay the player for the amount the table maximum only. Anything above that will be given back to the player. Your supervisor will walk you through this process. Now, if a player tries to play a high value check, notify the floor before spinning the ball. Call out "Check's play" and wait for an approval. When completing the take and pay procedure, pay color for color. Don't convert a payout to a higher value check without the approval of your floor. Once the dealer has marked the winning number, swept up all the lost bets to be mucked, and identified which chips need to be paid, it's time to calculate the winning total. Love what I'm wearing in these videos? Grab our roulette themed gear and explore more exclusive Vegas Aces merch in our shop. Show your dealer pride on and off the table. Math can be intimidating, especially when you realize your last serious math experience involved splitting a pizza bill 5 ways and still arguing about the tip. Calculating math is one of the hardest parts of dealing roulette. Luckily, there are several techniques available for you to use. Find the way that's easiest for you. Not everyone thinks the same or calculates bets in the same way. If a technique works for you and you get the right answer, that's all that matters. Even though this part may be intimidating for some dealers, especially those who struggle with math, Keep in mind that there's more than one way to do this. So if a technique isn't clicking, try something new. It's just a matter of finding out what works for you. No matter what technique you decide to use, you will always need at-home practice. Most of us are not math savants starting out at an expert level. We need to do our homework, spending hours practicing our techniques and going over the math. This is an important step that should not be skipped. When you're on the roulette table, you want to quickly calculate the payout and continue with the game. Worst case scenario for a roulette dealer is taking 5 minutes to calculate the payout while players are yelling different numbers at you, and then your floor supervisor has to stop what they're doing and tell you the correct payout. The only way to calculate the numbers quickly is through muscle memory. Your brain is a muscle that needs to be exercised, which can be done with homework. If the following techniques are not working for you, your floor supervisor and roulette coworkers are another source of knowledge with a vast wealth of information. Ask your floor supervisors and roulette coworkers how they handle calculating math on roulette. Each and every floor supervisor and roulette coworker will offer a unique answer to that same question. Floor supervisors offer tips and tricks that can help you be a better dealer. Listen to them and take in the wisdom they provide. They're here to help you. You can learn a lot from your floor supervisors and from your fellow roulette dealers. Now, the first and most common technique available to roulette dealers is learn your times tables. Memorize your 35 times table, your 17 times table, 11 times table, 8 times table, 6 times table, and 5 times table. Start at 1 and work your way up to 10, and once you've mastered that, work your way up to 20. That way, the only math you end up doing on the roulette table is adding large numbers together. For example, 3 straight up is 105 units, 6 split is 102 units, and 5 corners is 40 units. 105 units plus 110 units plus 40 units equals 247 units. By thinking of the chips as units and paying to the unit instead of paying the dollar amount, you'll never have to worry if the value of the chip is worth 25 cents, 50 cents, $1, $5, or $25. Paying to the unit will help you on any roulette game, whether it's a quarter game or a high limit game. This way you never have to pause when calculating a payout. The casinos want a speedy dealer who's also accurate, because speed and accuracy are critical to the casino's bottom line. The more spins per hour, the more money the casino makes. The second technique uses a key. A key is a mathematical equation that makes it easy for the dealer to figure out a complicated math problem. Keys are more commonly used on craps, however, they can work for other games as well. So if you want to pay per dollar amount instead of per unit, yet you're having a hard time converting $1 chips to $5 chips or $5 chips to $25 chips, then this key is for you. To convert a $1 chip to a $5 chip, take the full $1 payout, divide that in half, and multiply that answer by 10. For example, 4 straight up pays $140. Divide that by half, giving you $70, and add a 0 for a total of $700. To convert a $1 chip to a $25 chip, take the full $1 payout, divide that in half, then divide that in half one more time. Take that number and multiply it by 100. For example, 4 straight up pays $140. Divide that by half, giving you $70, and then divide that by half again, giving you $35. Add 2 zeros for a total of $3,500. The third technique is more simplified, perfect for those days when your brain just refuses to work. Page bet separately. If the player won a double street, a corner, a split, and a straight up, and you have brain fog and just can't add that up for the life of you, bring out the chips for each payout separately. For example, you know the 4 double street pays 20, bring out 1 stack of 20. The 3 corner pays 24, bring out 1 stack of 20 plus 4 chips. The 4 split pays 68, bring out 3 stacks of 20 plus 8 chips. And the 4 straight up pays 140 chips, bring out the 7 stacks of 20 chips. Put all those stacks together for a total of 252 and give it to the player. Life happens, and sometimes math is impossible, yet we're still expected to function. Do what you can to get by until you feel more like your normal self. If the dealer can't figure out the math for all of the players' wages, they are allowed to pay each bet separately. Just be sure to notify the floor supervisor and the player of what you're doing so that there's no confusion. The fourth technique uses patterns that are often seen to quickly calculate the final number. When adding up the chips, sometimes it's easier to use patterns to figure out the math. For example, 1 straight up and 2 chips on each corner is known as the Mickey Mouse pattern. If you see this pattern, you will automatically know that the payout is 51 without having to do any math. If you see 4 stacks of Mickey Mouse patterns, you will instantly know the payout is 204, which is 4 times 51. Knowing these patterns will help you promptly figure out the payout without having to spend much time figuring out the math. The fifth technique is to use flashcards to get your brain up to speed. By seeing these combinations and working out the math, this will strengthen the muscles in your brain, allowing it to calculate roulette payouts quickly and efficiently without much effort. Your flashcards could quiz you on beginner calculations such as how much does a straight-up bet pay if there are 1 to 20 chips on it? Or they could test you on more advanced scenarios, such as multiple chips on various bets resulting in a large payout. Or they can familiarize you with patterns that you may commonly see on the roulette table. If you don't want to spend time creating flashcards out of index cards and markers, you can go to our website, vegas-aces.com, where we have free flashcards that you can use, ranging from beginner to advanced to common patterns. You can use them on your phone in the break room or while standing in line at the grocery store. That way, you'll never have to pause on a live game while figuring out the payout. Instead, you can focus on other aspects of the game, such as table security. And keep in mind, if you're not confident in your math skills, don't worry. At least you're not the player betting all 38 numbers thinking, there's no way I can lose. Spoiler, the house edge says hi. Once the dealer has calculated the correct payout, they will gather the exact number of chips in stacks of 20 and place them in a designated pattern that will make it easier for the dealer to push them to the player. The patterns used are determined by the number of stacks that are paid to the player. Let's go over the different patterns dealers will use when paying the players. 2 stacks are placed side by side, and the total amount is 40 chips. 3 stacks are placed in a small triangle, and the total amount is 60 chips. 4 stacks are placed in a diamond figure, and the total amount is 80 chips. 5 stacks are the most common pattern used, and they are placed in a reverse isosceles trapezoid figure, and the total amount is 100 chips. 6 stacks are placed in a medium-sized triangle, and the total amount is 120 chips. 7 stacks are placed in a similar shape as a flower, and the total amount is 140 chips. 8 stacks are placed in the shape of a flower with a pointed top, and the total amount is 160 chips. 9 stacks are placed in an isosceles trapezoid figure, and the total amount is 180 chips. 10 stacks are placed in a large triangle, and the total amount is 200 chips. When giving players their chips, the dealer will push their stacks of chips to the player using specific finger placements. Now, the following images are a guide dealers can use when practicing pushing the chips. It's good to learn the placement of the stacks, as well as where the dealer should place their fingers. Notice the red dots on these images. The red dots are where your fingers should be positioned. Also, take note of the arrow, as this is the direction the chips should be pushed. By going in the direction of the arrow, this will make it easier for the dealer to keep the stacks together. You can find this guide on our website, vegas-aces.com. This skill requires time and practice to learn. It's not a good look when the dealer is consistently dumping their stack on a live game. If a dealer accidentally knocks over their stacks of chips when delivering them to the player, they may joke, "I was trying to go all in," which typically gets a laugh. But it only works once. If it keeps happening, the only thing the dealer is stacking is suspense. If you find yourself dumping stacks over and over again, the best way to handle this is to put in the time and effort to practice. When on a dead roulette table, ask the floor supervisor if you can practice pushing the chips. If you're dealing on another game, you can go to a dead roulette table during your break and ask to practice. More than likely, the floor supervisor will agree to this unless they're busy with a difficult player or a high roller. In fact, the casino wants dealers to practice their skills and develop this muscle memory. It's highly encouraged to continue practicing so that you are constantly improving. When dealing roulette, it's very important for the dealer to keep their body square with the table. This means that the bankroll must always be in view. In order to accomplish this, the dealer must pay the player their chips without turning their back to the bankroll. If the dealer pays the winnings with one hand, then they can keep their body square to the game and keep the bankroll in sight. On a right-handed table, the dealer will deliver the roulette chips with their left hand, so that way the dealer's head is never completely turned away from the layout or their bankroll. In that same respect, on a left-handed table, the dealer will deliver the roulette chips with their right hand. If the dealer uses 2 hands to pay the player, this forces them to turn their back on the bankroll, leaving it vulnerable. If the dealer must use both hands in order to pay the player, then keep your eyes on the bankroll and never turn your back or your head away from the bank. That's why it's better for the roulette dealer to learn how to push stacks of chips with one hand. Mucking is a term used to describe a certain way dealers pick up the chips and shouldn't be confused with hand mucking, which is a term used to describe a cheating maneuver that involves switching cards. This technique is mainly used on roulette when a dealer has to pick up large quantities of chips in a short amount of time. Mucking the chips refers to a pile of lost roulette chips that will be picked up and placed in a stack of 20. Roulette dealers have a lot of mucking experience because they must muck a large pile of chips after every spin. Once the dealer has handed the player their winning chips, it's good for the dealer to flash their palms up to the cameras quickly, clearing their hands before picking up the dolly and going back to the table and mucking chips. No clapping required. This is a swift and simple move that helps with game security and table protection. When mucking the chips, if a player needs change or they want you to place a bet for them, clap out, make change for the player, and then go back to mucking the chips. Make sure that that mucking pile is nowhere near the area where you're giving change. You don't want the two piles to mesh together. Try to muck as fast as you can by focusing on one color at a time. You will instinctively know when you've hit 20 by how that stack feels in your hand. In order to accomplish this, it's essential to practice this skill during a time when you don't have a full table. Ask your floor supervisor if you can practice mucking the chips while on a dead game. Sometimes the dealer has so many chips they need to muck that they must spin the ball to keep up with the pace of the game. If they do so, they must finish mucking all of the chips before the ball drops. Enough chips should be mucked before spinning the ball, so that way the dealer's eyes are completely on the wheel and on the layout when the ball drops. During these especially busy times, a second roulette dealer will be placed on the roulette table to help muck the chips. The word mucker is used to describe a dealer whose sole job is mucking the chips. Typically, the mucker is a second dealer who's placed on a busy roulette table to muck the pile of chips and help the primary dealer with payouts. In some casinos, the mucker is also known as the check raker. When the roulette game is busy, sometimes management will put a second dealer on the game to help with the pace of the game. This allows the primary dealer to focus on customer service and to watch the layout at all times, ensuring that no players are cheating. The mucker is responsible for mucking up lost chips and preparing chips to pay the winning bets. The mucker will need to be able to calculate the payouts for winning bets and have that amount ready in chip formation, so all the roulette dealer has to do is verify that it's the correct amount and send it off to the winning player. Teamwork is essential when trying to keep the game running at a steady pace during these busy times. Having a mucker on the table makes the game flow more smoothly and more quickly, helping with the pacing of the game, which casino managers like since this means increased profits. Conversation must be kept to a minimum and must pertain to the game. Do not talk about your favorite TV show. There is no gossip on the table. The only drama allowed on roulette is when the ball lands on 00 and someone just bet their mortgage on red. If a player is betting checks, it is the roulette dealer's responsibility to handle those checks, not the mucker. The mucker should never touch checks or the bank. They only handle roulette chips. The mucker is still expected to stay square with the table and to keep an eye on the layout when they are not mucking chips. As the ball drops, it is the mucker's responsibility to watch the layout like a hawk, looking for past posters. The mucker will watch the dealer mark the number and will then verify that the correct number was selected. There have been so many dealers that have come up to me asking how to deal single-zero roulette. They act like single-zero is a whole new world. It's nothing new. There's still a spinning wheel, chips to push, and players who'll blame you when they lose. Remember, single-zero roulette is exactly the same as double roulette and triple roulette. All three games have the exact same pay table and are dealt in the same way. In fact, they're pretty much the same game. If you know how to deal double-zero roulette, then you know how to deal single-zero and triple-zero roulette. The only difference is the house edge. The house edge for a double-zero roulette game is 5.26%, while the house edge for a triple-zero roulette game is 7.69%, and the house edge for a single-zero roulette game is 2.70%. You don't need to pay to go to school to learn single-zero roulette. If you know how to deal double or triple-zero roulette, then single-zero roulette is basically the same thing. It's a normal roulette game, with the only difference being that it has 1 0 instead of 2. There are some casinos where single-zero roulette games offer the La Partage or en prison rule. However, keep in mind, every casino is different and not all single-zero roulette games will offer these. The La Partage rule only applies to even money bets. If 0 hits, instead of losing the entire even money wager, the player will only lose half their bet. So instead of a full heartbreak, it's just a mild emotional inconvenience. The dealer would take half of the even money bets, and then the player would take the remaining half. This rule drops the house edge to 1.35%, making this the best roulette game in the casino. Some casinos that offer La Partage also have a rule called en prison, which brings the house edge back up to 2.7. If 0 hits, the player only loses half their bet, but the casino forces the player to keep their bet on the table and play for another spin. Basically, the wager is in prison. The dealer will freeze all wagers on the even money bets by placing a marker over them, so players cannot place or take bets. If the player wins the next spin, the bet is released from prison and the player can take their original bet back without any winnings. If the wager loses on the next spin, the player will lose their original wager. If 0 is hit for a second time in a row, even money bets will remain in prison. Now, some casinos have double or triple imprisonment, where the player must win the next 2 or 3 spins in order to get that wager back. Single 0 roulette is also known as European roulette. It's the same game, but with a different name. American roulette is normally a double 0 roulette game that can be found in most casinos. Both games will normally have one dealer managing the game, while the players are only allowed to bet from one side of the table. The numbers on the wheel are typically in different locations if compared between an American roulette and European roulette game. A European roulette game can also be known as an American European roulette. There's also an American version of French roulette that has a single 0 as well as the La Partage and en prison rule. Whereas an actual French roulette game will have 3 dealers managing the game, while players are allowed to bet from both sides of the table. Between American, European, French, and the mashups in between, roulette has more spin-offs than a Netflix series. What are your experiences dealing European or French roulette? Have you dealt a game with a La Partage or en prison procedures? Let us know what your experiences are in the comments so that we can share our knowledge with other dealers. In an industry full of games, table protection is just one more game, the game of cat and mouse. The only way to win is for the dealer to continuously improve their dealing skills. Learn as much as possible, grow, evolve, and level up to make it easier to catch the cheaters and scammers with their ever-changing yet creative schemes. The best thing a dealer can do is to learn from their experiences and share what they've learned with other people in the industry. Cheaters will commonly survey casinos as they check out the competency level of the staff. This is called shopping the store. When cheaters go shopping, they're looking for discounts in the form of distracted dealers. Don't be the bargain bin with sloppy hands and a flashing easy target tag. This isn't Black Friday for cheaters. In order to avoid being a target, dealers must learn as much education about dealing their game as possible and apply what they've learned to their everyday task. Nobody wants a reputation of being the weakest link. In order to improve and grow, one must never stop ingesting knowledge. Besides watching our video series on how to deal roulette, you can also go to our website, vegas-aces.com, and read our articles. We have instruction manuals from casinos and schools around the world that will help you learn and grow. You can find those links in the description below. Other methods of learning include attending training seminars, join forums, study surveillance, pick the brain and talk with more experienced dealers or floor supervisors about what they know, and read books, such as American Roulette by Richard Marcus. You can find that link in the description below. The most important thing you can do as a dealer is to follow all of your casino's policies and procedures at all times. If every dealer is doing the same thing over and over again, it will be obvious when an unusual action occurs. This uniform motion makes it easier for the floor supervisor or the eye in the sky to spot anything strange, as this will stick out like a sore thumb. Every action performed by a dealer requires a specific motion. These motions have been standardized in order to bring another degree of protection to the game. Everything a dealer does must be clean and clear-cut. This readability and orderliness helps the eye in the sky and management to do their job with ease, especially when the floor is in the center of the pit, watching 4 to 8 games at a time. If everything is done clearly, it's easier for the floor supervisor to read the game. Past posting is one of the most common forms of cheating on a roulette game. That's why casinos know roulette as the past poster's Garden of Eden. Past posting is when the player makes a bet or alters an established bet after a winner has already been determined in order to receive a higher payout. Past posting originates from horse racing, where a bugler sounds a call to the post just before the race begins. This is also the signal that no more bets can be taken. Any bets made after that time occur after or past the post. Players normally try this move after the ball just dropped and when the dealer has tunnel vision while looking at the roulette wheel, or when they have their back turned in order to get the first payout. Dealers should refrain from losing focus during this crucial time of the game. This cannot be stated enough. The dealer should never turn their back on the roulette table or on the bank. When the ball is dropping, the dealer should stay square with the game by taking a few steps back and angle their body in a way that they can see both the wheel and the table at the same time. Always walk your game. The dealer should never have any part of the table blocked from their view at any time. Be aware of anything that might take your attention away from the game. Answering questions, providing change, or helping people should be done after all bets have been paid and before the ball has been spun. Don't casino gaze, even on a dead game. Your attention should always be on the table and not watching the televisions that are placed above the bar. Remember to stay focused. That magic show on TV will come to life when chips on your table start appearing and disappearing out of thin air. Past posters like to make higher denomination moves during busy times. This allows them to blend in more easily and gives the floor less time to closely examine questionable wagers. The cheaters will adjust their betting amount based on the table limit and how much action is normally tolerated by the staff. The cheater tries to make it appear as an honest mistake because then there's less of a chance that surveillance is brought into it. If the dealer believes it is their own mistake, he might fix it without calling over the floor. This is why dealers should never fix their own mistakes, no matter how insignificant they think it is. The dealer must always call the floor to fix any mistakes that were made on the table. Past posting moves are more likely to be detected if floor supervisors and dealers follow procedures and check questionable wagers or incidents. Another common tactic that players will use is the Snatch and Run technique. This unsophisticated approach is a low bar that's still quite effective and can be used on any game. As soon as the player realizes that they have lost, they will grab their cash or chips and sprint out of the casino, hoping to get far away enough before security realizes what has happened. This is one of the reasons why you will see security posted at every entrance. One of the ways you can prevent this from happening on your roulette table is to focus on the bets furthest away from the dealer in the spots that are the most vulnerable, such as the outside bets. When completing the take and pay procedure, the dealer will collect all of the lost wagers on the columns first, followed by the lost even money bets, then the dozens, and last but not least, all of the inside bets. The reason why is because if a player is going to snatch their lost bet and run, they're going to do so with the bet that's closest to them and furthest from the dealer. If a player does this at your table, immediately notify your floor supervisor that you have a snatch and run. They'll contact security, who will then go after the perpetrator. Another vulnerable area that the dealer needs to be aware of is the wheel. Always remain alert and keep an eye on your wheel. Take note if a player is hovering over the wheel or leaning against the glass. This glass is there to protect the roulette wheel from anyone trying to mess with the ball or the wheel. If you see a player doing this, politely ask them to move aside or to stand near the table instead. Players are not allowed to stand next to the wheel, lean against the glass, or hover over the wheel as they may be trying to interfere with the spin of the ball. As you are dealing roulette, here are a few more things to look out for. When spinning the ball, if you notice any dents, grooves, or cuts in the roulette wheel, notify management immediately. Another thing that may interfere with spinning the ball is if you're wearing large bracelets or excessive jewelry. Rule of thumb, if it dangles, it's a danger. Save the glam for after your shift. Remember, if your bracelet jingles louder than the chips, it's probably not dealer approved. As a casino dealer, you want to wear a minimal amount of jewelry as possible. Excessive jewelry is not permitted, and there should be no jewelry on the hand that spins the ball. Also, be aware that when making change, do not allow any transaction to take place over the wheel head or on the wheel. If you ever have any doubts or suspicions about a player or the moves they're making, notify your floor supervisor. Do not argue with a player. Instead, call your floor supervisor immediately. When closing up the table, alert the floor that you are bringing up the lid. Do not let the bankroll out of your sight. Pick up the lid while still looking at your bankroll. Team play is an incredibly common tactic that cheaters use when targeting a casino. It's used on games such as Blackjack and Baccarat However, roulette is the most tempting game with its high odds, easily netting a group thousands of dollars per spin. There are hundreds of different scams these teams use, which is why following correct policies and procedures at all times is so vital for the security and protection of the game. The way one of these scams is played out is through distraction. Typically, a beautiful woman sitting near the roulette wheel will place her bets on the numbers that are near the columns, such as 35. The mechanic will sit on the other side of the table, near the columns, as he's the one that will swap the chips. There will be two more team members that will strategically place their chips in front of the mark, angling them in a way that the dealer cannot easily see the entire stack of chips on that number. As soon as the ball drops and 35 hits, the two actors will make their move. The woman will cause a distraction by becoming frantic, saying she lost two of her black chips as she starts searching for them. At that same moment, the mechanic will swap out the woman's chips for a stack of chips that have two blackjacks mixed in with them. Once the woman's missing chips are located on the winning number 35, she is happily shouting for joy about her accidental win of $7,000. When someone accidentally wins $7,000 during a meltdown over two missing chips, that's not luck, that's theater with a payout. That's why it's important for the dealer to case their layout, looking for any high-value checks, and it's also important for the dealer to take a few steps back and watch the table as the ball drops so they can easily see all actions taken at the table at the same time as they glance at the wheel to see the winning number. Teams commonly use distractions to cheat. Distractions are a great way of getting the dealer to move in a certain way and focus on certain things at certain times, making it easy for the mechanic to work. For example, if a player spilled a drink at one end of the table, this causes the dealer to have tunnel vision as they turn their back on the other end of the table, making it easy for the mechanic to switch bets. Other distractions can range from common, such as being asked rude or upsetting questions, to unusual, such as players getting into a fight, to the absurd, such as a player walking around the casino topless or fully naked. Sometimes cheaters will target the floor supervisor instead of the dealer. This next cheating move uses casino procedure and the floor supervisor's memory to their advantage. A team will already be placed on the table, a mechanic and two chip bettors. The claimer, the player who will take the winnings, will walk up to the table and legitimately bet $100 check inside straight up on one of the third dozen numbers in full view of the dealer. This is the setup. It is procedure for the dealer to notify the floor supervisor if a $25 green check or higher plays on any of the inside numbers. The dealer will see this black chip and announce its presence to the floor supervisor, who will walk over and take note of the $100 spin player and their wager. The floor will watch the spin, and win or lose, the player will walk away from the table and out of sight immediately afterwards. The claimer would stay out of sight and wait, watching for the mechanic's signal to return. As soon as one of the third dozen numbers hit, the mechanic will signal to the claimer, and they will walk in behind the seat closest to the wheel. This makes it look like he was less likely to have tampered with the bet. As soon as the dealer sweeps up the losers and turns his back on the table, the mechanic will make his move, placing a $100 black chip under the winning bets of the winning number. Once this move is finished, the claimer will excitedly exclaim he won. Since he had previously set up the floorman and the dealer with a legitimate bet, they expect to be instantly accepted as a winner and paid by the casino staff without suspicion. This allowed the cheater to receive a $7,000 payoff. In order for the dealer to prevent this, the dealer will case their layout and see that there are no black chips inside. As soon as the black chip appears, the dealer will know something is fishy because it was not there when they cased their layout. That's why it's so important to case your layout before every spin. That way, if a mystery black chip shows up, you can skip the guessing and go straight to, "Excuse me, floor, we've got a Houdini situation." The dealer will notify the floor that something is fishy, and the floor can request the cameras to play back the footage. Another thing the dealer can do to prevent this is as soon as the ball starts to drop, the dealer will take a few steps back so they can see the table and the ball at the same time. The dealer will always stay square to the game and never turn their back on the table, even when making a payout. By following these procedures, it will make it harder for the mechanic to get away with pass posting. Love what I'm wearing in these videos? Grab our roulette-themed gear and explore more exclusive Vegas Aces merch in our shop. Show your dealer pride on and off the table. Another scam these cheaters will try is by creating a diversion based on how they place their chips. 2 or more chip bettors will place themselves strategically on the roulette table, making predetermined bets on specific numbers and colors. They do this with the intention of manipulating the dealer's body based on the location of their chips. The chips they use are the minimum wager of $1 or 50 cents. The goal is to try and control the dealer so that the dealer has to physically move their body and head in a specific way, as to give their mechanic enough openings and the time to be able to pass, post, or switch bets. The mechanic is normally located near the third dozens area, where the numbers 25 through 36 are located. One way to protect against this is to make sure the dealer is aware of the angle of their body and how it should always be facing the entire table. This includes when the ball is dropping, after the ball has dropped, when sweeping the layout, and when going to get chips in order to pay people. The dealer should never turn their back on the layout. The dealer should be able to see the entire table clearly at all times. If one scam doesn't work, these cheaters will try something else. There are so many scams up their sleeve that it's important for dealers to be knowledgeable about as many as possible and how to protect the table from them. The next scam we'll cover is these players who play value chips inside in such a way that if their number didn't hit, they would quickly slide a stack of chips onto the winning spot. They would complete this maneuver before the dealer sets down the marker. Usually, they'll have people standing near the wheel, distracting the dealer at this crucial moment. In order to protect themselves from this scam, dealers should refrain from losing focus during this crucial time of the game, when the ball is dropping to when the take and pay procedure is complete. Answering questions, providing change, or helping players should be done after all of the bets have been paid. Again, the dealer's body should be angled in such a way that they never turn their back on the roulette table or the bank. The dealer must stay square with their table, walking the game, so that the table and bank are in view at all times. This includes when the ball is dropping, as the dealer should take a few steps back and angle their body so they can see both the wheel and the table at the same time. The casino not only has to protect their games from players, but they also have to protect their game from cheating dealers. Dealers who watch the wheel as they spin the ball are trying to hit certain numbers or neighborhood of numbers. These kinds of cheaters are called the watchers. It's the classic tale of spin of thrones, beware the watchers. Those who fix their gaze upon the sacred wheel, hoping to summon the power of the numbers that pay. Surveillance sees all, and winter comes for cheaters. But that is why casinos have a policy that when the dealer spins the ball, they're supposed to look at the table and not the wheel. It's also why the speed of the wheel is supposed to vary. In order to complete this move correctly, the roulette wheel has to spin at an identical speed consistently. Not too fast that the ball jumps around the wheel when it hits a pocket, but not too slow as to catch the floor supervisor's attention. One of the ways to prevent this is for the floor supervisor to double check and make sure the dealer is not watching the wheel when they spin the ball. Also, make sure the wheel moves at a reasonable speed, which should be varied. The spin of the ball should be varied as well. Get ready to uncover one of the most audacious roulette scams ever. The Savannah is like pickpocketing at a roulette table. Clean, calculated, and if you're not paying attention, completely invisible. This cheating move is so big, we needed to give it its own video. Learn how to protect your game from this classic trick and stay one step ahead of the cheaters. This scam is called the Savannah, and it was created by Richard Marcus, which he describes in detail in his book, American Roulette. If you want to read more about this, then please go to the link in the description below where you can get his book. The Savannah is a form of pinching. Pinching is when the cheater takes a chip or two off a losing bet. The difference is, when executing the Savannah, the mechanic pinches the bet, swaps chips, and then places the bet back on the table. If you're a roulette dealer and you don't know about this scam, then watch this video. The more you know, the better a dealer you can be. Here's how the Savannah works. Step 1. Place a bet. A team of cheaters would go up to the roulette table and, at the beginning of the round, when everyone is placing their bets, one of the cheaters will make a legit bet. The cheater will place 3 checks on the columns or the dozens. 2 of the checks will be red chips worth $5, while the bottom check is worth $500 or $1,000. They would angle the chips in such a way that, from the dealer's perspective, the high-value chip underneath cannot be seen. By slanting the first 2 checks towards the dealer, it hides the larger value bottom check from view. The dealer can only see the red checks, and that's all the cheater wants them to see. Step 2. Legit win. If the bet wins, the winner will point out the large check after after the dealer tries to pay them with all red $5 checks. The dealer will call over their floor supervisor, who will call the cameras. The eye in the sky will verify that it was a legit bet, that it was there from the beginning. The cheater has found a way to make the cameras work for them instead of against them. Because it is a legit win, the dealer will pay the bet 2-1 and the cheater will leave the table. The highest value check the cheater will use is $1,000. They won't use a $5,000 or $10,000 chip because the casino tracks those chips at all times. The cheater would attract a lot of heat if they tried to use a high value check. And the #1 rule of team play is to execute your scam without attracting a lot of attention to yourself. They don't want people to know what they're doing. Cheaters want to be able to get away with their scam and then move on without the casino ever knowing that they were just hit. Step 3, the distraction. What if the cheaters lose? Typically, scammers work as a team. As soon as the ball drops and they see it's a losing number, but before the dealer has placed their dolly on the winning number, one of the teammates will cause a distraction. They may ask the dealer an offensive question, spill a drink, get into a fight, or a hot woman may walk by topless. There are so many things that these cheaters can do to divert the dealer's attention. If something seems like a distraction right after the ball has dropped, see this for the red flag that it is, and immediately focus your attention on the table and your bank. Step 4, the switch. Once the dealer's attention is away from the table, the mechanic will make their move. The mechanic will pinch the lost wager and swap the large check with a much smaller red $5 check, putting it back on the table. If the cheater loses, they've only lost $15. But if they win, they can walk away with a few $1,000s. Step 5, avoiding accusations. If the dealer notices the pinch, the mechanic will act like they made an honest mistake and just put it back. No harm, no foul. Oh, sorry about that, here you go. It's important that the player is kind and friendly. They don't cause a problem and they happily comply. The cheater's logic? Add a smile to your crime and voila! Instant upgrade from criminal intent to adorable oopsies. The cheater may even act like they're drunk or they didn't realize the ball just dropped. Either way, the cheater will gladly give the dealer their lost wager of $15. Since the player gave the money back, there's no need to notify the floor supervisor or call the cameras. Want the full story behind the Savannah? Richard Marcus tells all in his book American Roulette, his jaw-dropping memoir of cons, casino life, and high-stakes cheating. You can buy his book by clicking the link in the description below. When this team of cheaters is going through the casino, shopping for weak dealers, they are specifically looking for dealers who are not protecting their game. That's why it's always important to protect your table by always casing your layout or walking your game. You don't want to be one of the dealers that they pick. Be aware of what's going on, who is playing what bet, and focus on the most vulnerable area, the columns and the dozens. When you case your layout, take note of all bets, making sure they are over the table minimum and under the table maximum. You want to be sure that you can see all of the bets being played. If you can't see all of the chips because of how they were placed, take a second to readjust the bet by first clearing your hands and then rearranging the stacks of chips so they can all be seen clearly. Be sure to know what you have on your table. Take note of any high-value checks being played and notify your floor supervisor if you see any green $25 ones or higher being played on the inside bets or any black $100 chips or higher being played on the outside bets. Call out checks play and be sure your floor supervisor heard and acknowledged the call. It's good to know what checks are being played on your table because if those bets change, you know a cheater pinched or pass posted their bet. Always case your layout before you spin the ball. Another casino procedure that will help you protect your table is to wave off bets. Once you've cased your layout and all the bets look good, go ahead and spin the ball. As soon as you hear the ball start to slow down, wave off the table. No more bets are allowed to be played. Typically, the players will stay back, allowing you to see if anyone tries to change or alter their wager. The dealer will take 2 steps back, so that way they can see both the table and the wheel at the exact same time. Listen for the ball to drop, and when you hear it, quickly glance over and look and see what number was hit. Then, quickly glance back. Like the snap of a finger, it's that fast. That way, you don't have tunnel vision, and you're always looking at the table and the wheel at the same time. Make sure nobody is hovering over the wheel, and that there's no movement near the columns or dozens. Quickly place the dolly on the number, and then start sweeping all of the lost bets. One of the mistakes dealers tend to make is that they have tunnel vision right after the ball has dropped. They're so focused on figuring out the math and paying out the bets that they don't even realize that their backs are turned on the table, allowing players to pinch or pass post their bet. Turning your back on the table is like putting up a sign that says, "Free money, help yourself while I do math." The dealer must be able to see their table at all times, even when paying out a bet. If you have your back turned to the table or to the bank at any time, you're leaving your table vulnerable to cheaters. The last scam we're going to discuss is marking check value. First, let's go over what normally happens on a roulette table. Each player will have a different colored roulette chip with the minimum value of the table they are playing on. Depending on the casino, that minimum value may be $1, but in the past, it was 25 cents. If the player requests a chip of higher value, then the dealer will mark the check value by placing a colored roulette chip in the rack. The rack is a plastic container attached to the head of the wheel. After the dealer has placed that chip on the rack, they will put a lammer on top of it. The lammer tells us how much the chips are worth because, trust me bro, doesn't work on the casino tables. The lammer indicates the total value of a stack of 20. If the player requests $5 chips, then the dealer would place a lammer with the number 100 on top of the colored roulette chip, indicating that each stack of 20 chips is worth $100. It's imperative that the player color up their chips before leaving the table. The player should not leave the table with any roulette chips. As soon as a player has left the table, the dealer will take down the chip in the lammer and verify that all of the roulette chips are there and accounted for. Roulette chips typically have the table number marked on them. For example, if you see the table marked R005, then you will see 05 on the roulette chip. It's helpful when the table number is printed on the roulette chips for the corresponding tables. Since each roulette table has the same number of chips and the same number of stacks, it's easy to look at the table and see if any chips are missing. Being able to verify that all chips are accounted for strengthens game security. Sorting machines weaken game security because it's difficult to verify that all chips are there and accounted for. If these procedures are not followed, then that leaves the table vulnerable to certain scams. For example, if a roulette player plays with blue chips at a value of $25 each. When they lose, they will leave the table, and shortly after that, another player will buy in requesting blue roulette chips. After playing for a while, they leave, taking some of their blue roulette chips with them. The second player will give these extra chips to the first player, who will then come back to the table with the missing chips, saying they forgot to color up. Those stacks of $1 roulette chips just turned into a stack of $25 roulette chips. It's important for the dealer to stop players from walking away from the table with their roulette chips. Remind players that once they leave the roulette table, their roulette chips become worthless. Players must color up to actual checks before leaving the table. If you are unable to stop the player from leaving, call your floor supervisor over and notify them of what happened, what color chips the players had, what the value of those chips are, how many chips they took with them, and a description of the player. One of the ways casinos combat this scam is by implementing a policy that if a player leaves the table with roulette chips and the chips are worth $5, then when that player comes back to cash them out, the dealer will only give them the minimum value assigned to most roulette chips, which is $1 per chip. It's a roulette fairy tale. Once those chips leave the table, their magic wears off. It's like Cinderella, only the magic ends not at midnight, but the moment those chips leave the layout. This will help persuade players to change their roulette chips before leaving the table. To avoid any confusion during break time, when going on your break, notify the incoming dealer of any higher chip values that are in play. How do you learn how to deal roulette if you don't have a roulette table in your living room? Luckily, there's plenty of ways to do this that will help you on your journey of learning how to deal this game. You can even make a game out of it by setting goals and rewarding yourself when you've completed those goals. The rewards don't have to be big. They can be something small, like your favorite coffee from Starbucks. Or you can set even smaller goals, reward yourself with candy, and just like that, you're learning roulette and living all of our childhood dreams of being paid in sugar. Let's start by breaking down roulette to its core elements. The first of these core elements is math. Roulette is heavily based on math, and that's what we're going to begin with. Practice memorizing your times tables. You will want to study your 35 times tables, followed by your 17 times tables, then 11, 8, 6, and 5. Focus on one times table at a time, as this will make it easier for your brain to memorize. Learn 1 through 10 first, and when you've mastered that, work on 11 through 20. When you feel proficient with one number, move on to the next times table. Now there are a few methods that will help you during this process. Since everyone learns differently, pick the method that works best for you. The first method is reciting numbers, which benefits auditory learners. Auditory learners are the people who best absorb information by hearing it. Begin with 1 and end at 10. For example, if you were reciting the 35 times tables, you would say out loud, 35, 70, 105, 140, 175, 210, 245, 280, 315, 350. Then say it again, and again, and again, until you know it by heart. When you feel like you have a good grasp on it, quiz yourself. Say out loud, 5 times 35 is 175, 9 times 35 is 315, and so on. Or you can ask a friend or a loved one to quiz you. When you can do that with all of the numbers without making a mistake on multiple occasions, then move on to the next times table. The second method will benefit visual learners, or the people who best absorb information by seeing it or writing it on paper. We've provided worksheets that you can print out and write the answers down on. Or copy what we have on a whiteboard so you can use it over and over again without wasting paper. We've also provided the answers so you can see if you were correct or not. Start with 1 through 10, and when you are ready, push yourself to learn 11 through 20. The third method is for tactile learners, people who learn by doing or experiencing what they've been taught. Gather a few stacks of playing chips together to help you with this exercise. Keep in mind that each stack has 20 chips in it. On a piece of paper, draw out a few boxes to represent a roulette table. Then place a chip in the appropriate area, whether that is straight up, a split, a corner, and so on. Pay the wager as you would as if you were on a roulette table. Practice each wager from 1 to 20 until you can run through these drills without making a mistake. If you don't have any chips that you can practice with, you can buy some on Amazon. The link is in the description below. The fourth method uses flashcards, because nothing says casino dealer more than flipping through flashcards during your break. It's basically the dealer's version of Pokemon. You can make your own flashcards or use our flashcards on our website. The beginner set of flashcards focuses on the times tables from 1 to 20 for every wager. When deciding whether to use the dollar value or the units, we recommend units, as this can be used for any value roulette chip. You have the option to go in order, or you can click the random box to mix things up a bit. If you're interested in using this free resource, you can find the link in the description below. But flashcards can be used for learning things other than times tables. Vegas Aces offers roulette flashcards so students can learn patterns and advanced math. Dealers look for patterns made by specific check combinations to help determine how much they should pay. Instead of doing math, the dealer will see these patterns and know immediately how much they pay. This makes figuring out the payout so much easier. The advanced flashcards show a roulette table similar to a busy night where every number is covered by multiple chips. That's when the flashcards stop being practice and start being therapy. You can either pay per unit or by the dollar amount. If you decide to do the dollar amount, you will have to figure out the payout for $1 chips, $5 chips, and $25 chips. The second core element is pushing chips. First things first, let's talk about what supplies you'll need to make this happen. Of course, a roulette table would be nice. However, most people don't have a roulette table in their living room. We'll need to mimic a table instead. The closest household item most people have that mimics a casino table is an ironing board. It's waist high and padded, which is exactly what we need. If you don't have an ironing board, then you can fold a blanket and place it on a hard kitchen table. Only fold it once, as too much padding is just as bad as no padding at all. Secure the blanket onto the table using clamps to keep it from moving as you practice. If you don't have clamps, then you can zip tie the corners of the blanket to the legs of the table. You will also need chips to practice with. We put a few links to where you can buy chips in the description below. Now that we have everything we need, let's get to it. You will be practicing the correct stack formation, finger placement, and the direction you will need to push the chips. You can find a drawn diagram of the roulette hand placement guide on our website. This will help you immensely. You can find the link in the description below. Start with your dominant hand, and when you feel comfortable, switch to your non-dominant hand. It's good to learn how to use both your right and left hands when pushing the chips, as roulette dealers are expected to deal on both a right and left-handed roulette table. When pushing chips, you never want to turn your back on the bank or the roulette wheel. It's very important for the dealer to keep their body square with the table. This means that the bank must always be in view, and in order to accomplish that, the dealer must pay the player their chips without turning their back to the bankroll. If the dealer pays the winnings with one hand, then he can keep his body square to the game and the bankroll in sight. If the dealer uses 2 hands to pay the player, then this forces him to turn his back on the bankroll, leaving it vulnerable. And that's why roulette dealers learn how to push stacks of chips with 1 hand. Besides practicing math and pushing chips, the only other thing a new dealer can practice is snapping the ball, and that can only be done in the casino. During your break, go to a dead roulette game and ask the floor supervisor if you can practice snapping the ball on the wheel. More than likely, they will say yes, unless they are busy or have a high roller in their pit. If they say no, try again on another break. Go to the table and let the dealer know you're there to practice. Most dealers will teach you what they know and try to help you the best they can. Don't spin the ball, because that requires you to flip your wrist. This might be fine a few times, but if you do this hundreds of times daily during an 8-hour shift for years, you can easily get carpal tunnel or a cyst in your wrist. We want to teach you the proper way of snapping the ball so that you can deal roulette for 20 years and never have any medical problems. You want to keep your wrist as straight as possible. You are snapping the ball, not flicking your wrist. If you do this right, there should not be any added pressure or exertion on your fingers or wrist. Go ahead and snap your fingers a few times. This is how you snap the ball, except you'll have a roulette ball placed between your middle finger and thumb. Don't expect a perfect spin on your first try. It's normal to mess up several times before you get the hang of it. You can even expect the ball to fly out of the wheel a few times. This is why you're practicing on a dead table and not on a live one with players. You don't want to accidentally hit a player in the eye as the roulette ball flies out of the wheel. When you get the hang out of snapping the ball with your dominant hand, practice snapping it with your non-dominant hand. You don't want to be caught unaware if you're placed on a left-handed or right-handed roulette wheel. Snapping the ball isn't the only thing you can practice on a dead roulette game. You can also practice pushing chips. Think of dead games as the casino's version of a gym, except you're building muscle memory instead of biceps. Try pushing stack to the furthest end of the table while keeping your body square with the table. You'll want to have the bank and the wheel in view at all times. If the casino has an in-house school, you can go there during break and practice the entire process, from people placing their bets, to snapping the ball, to making correct payouts. If you diligently practice for hours on your own time, you will be confident and ready to deal when you're on a live game. What tips and tricks would you give to new roulette dealers? Let us know what you think in the comments so we can share our knowledge with other dealers. Anyway, that does it for today's show. Thank you so much, Aces, for joining me today. And in the next video series, you'll learn how to be a floor supervisor. We have an announcement. We are currently hiring casino dealers and floor supervisors to write scripts for our how-to YouTube videos. We're looking for people who know how to deal craps, pai gow tiles, or big baccarat. However, we need scripts for any game we don't already have a course for. Email us a list of games you can deal, how long you've been dealing or supervising, and a sample of your writing to heather@vegas-aces.com. Bonus points if you can be an actor and or deal the game in our videos. Must either be located in Las Vegas or have access to a casino that will let you film at their location. Just a quick reminder, Vegas Aces is supported by viewers like you. Donations make it possible for all of these videos to be brought to you for free. If you think this video is worth more than $0, then please donate the amount you feel it is worth by clicking the link in the description below. Do you want to see our content 5 days early? Subscribe to us on Patreon, where we give our patrons exclusive early access and coach new dealers on how to get into the industry. The folks on the screen right now are our Patreon producers. Every single name is a person in this world who supports this channel, so we can keep going. And we're so grateful to them that they've allowed us to go on this really remarkable journey. Thanks, everybody, for being a part of this. If you can't afford to financially support us, then help us update our World Toke Board. This shows the toke numbers for casino dealers around the world, but we can't update these numbers if people don't contribute. You can anonymously send us your toke numbers via our toke line or by emailing heather@vegas-aces.com. Also, if you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe. Our business also helps casino game inventors with developing your game, bringing your idea to fruition and onto the casino floor. If you have a casino game you want to develop, email us. You can find a link to our email in the description below. And if you're looking for even more content, check out our other videos here on the screen. We also offer free courses, flashcards, dealer instruction manuals, the world's first toke board, and so much more, all at our website, vegas-aces.com. You can find all of these links in the description below. Until next time, stay lucky, Aces.